Hello and welcome to Fix and Drive. Today I'll show you how to change your spark plugs on your Alfa Romeo Giulia 2.0. This is a simple process and can save you a lot of money. So let's get started. The first thing we'll want to do is disconnect the negative battery terminal. This will remove any electricity from running through the car while we change the spark plugs. Also, cover the latch so you don't accidentally close the trunk and have a hard time opening it. Here are some of the tools we will need. You'll need a socket wrench with an extension and a shorter extension, a 10mm socket. You'll need a spark plug socket that has the piece inside to hold the spark plug. You'll need either a flathead screwdriver, or I'm using a pointy tool to remove rubber gaskets to help pry open some of the plastics. And you will also need a torque wrench. The spark plugs I'm going with is the NGK Laser Iridium. The part number for these is the one labeled in the service manual for Alfa Romeo. I got these from Madness Auto Works, and I have a link in the description below. Full disclosure, I am an affiliate of theirs and do get a commission, but it helps support my channel. So before we install these, we want to take each one out and verify that the spark plug gap is spec to the recommendation in the service manual, which the specifications for the Alfa Romeo 2.0 4-cylinder is between 0.023 and 0.025 inches of gap. So you just slide the spark plug in the thinnest part and then gently slide across until you feel tension on it. So this one's in spec, and I'll do this for the other three and then we can get started. First, we'll want to remove the engine cover. To do that, we'll have to remove these two plastic tabs. I'm using my pointy tool, but a flathead will also work. Pull these tabs loose. Inside is 2mm bolts that we'll need to remove. I'll take my socket wrench and break them loose. And then I'll unscrew both of them. So once those are removed, you'll want to lift up on the front of the cover. And there's two parts in the back where it's attached, and you want to gently lift up on each corner in the back. And now that the cover's loose, we can set it aside. You'll see there's a lot going on here, but there's one spark plug, there's the third and the fourth. So I'll need my socket wrench with a 10mm socket, and we'll remove the bolt from the ignition coil. And then next we'll remove the connector. Using a flathead or my pointy tool, we want to kind of lift up on the tab just a bit where it sticks out. Once you have it lifted out, you'll pinch down on the plastic tab and work the connector loose. Now we'll finish unscrewing the bolt and we'll remove the ignition coil. We'll just set this aside while we remove the spark plug. Using the spark plug socket and extension, we'll break the spark plug loose and then unscrew it out of the engine. So now I'll take one of my new spark plugs, remove it from the box, and then I'm going to use some copper anti-seize lubricant to put on the threads so that it isn't stuck in the engine the next time we'll need to remove the spark plug. I'll secure it into the spark plug socket, and then I work it backwards until I feel it line up with the threads. Then I'll screw it down, and then with the socket wrench you will tighten the spark plug to 14 foot-pounds. Okay, spark plug's installed, so we'll pull out the spark plug socket and we'll put the ignition coil back in. Make sure you have it seated securely, and then we'll screw down the bolt that holds down the ignition coil, and then we'll tighten it down just snug. We'll be fine. And then we'll reattach the connector. Once it's slid on, you'll push the little tab back in to lock it in. Okay, now we'll move to the second spark plug. We'll need to remove this hose. It attaches to your blow-off valve to your turbo, but normally it's attached, and you'll pull that clamp and remove it. I have a stopper in mind to give that blow-off valve sound when I let off the gas. So first we'll need to remove the connector. Set it aside, and then we'll loosen up the bolt that holds down the ignition coil. Then we'll unscrew it and then pull the ignition coil out. Watch out for that connector so you don't accidentally break it when you're moving this around. You want to check the condition of the ignition coil. So now we'll get our extension and socket wrench, and we'll unscrew the spark plug from the engine. Let's gently remove it. And then we'll add the new spark plug. Put some anti-seize copper on it. Kind of lightly coat it on the threads with a paper towel. Put it back into your spark plug socket. Make sure the threads are lined up, and then hand screw it down. And then we'll torque it down to 14 foot-pounds. Move the extension and make sure that the spark plug socket comes out with it. Sometimes it'll hold on tight and can be a little tricky to remove. And we'll add the ignition coil back. And we'll tighten the bolt down. Get it snug on the engine. And then we'll reconnect the connector to the ignition coil. And then we'll lock it in, pushing the tab down. Now we'll do the third spark plug. Use the pointing tool to unlock the connector. Squeeze down on the tab and then work the connector loose. And use our 10mm socket to remove the bolt holding down the ignition coil. Once it's loose, then we can gently pull the coil out. Be careful not to bump any other wires or connectors while doing this. Check the condition of your ignition coil. And now we'll have to use a extra extension to be able to remove the spark plug in the third socket. There's a little bit more parts that you have to clear, so the extra height helps you remove it. Okay, then we'll add any seize to the new spark plug. Put in the socket, and then we'll screw it back down. Making sure that the threads are lined up, and torque it down to 14 foot-pounds. We'll make sure to add the ignition coil again. And we'll work the bolt down to secure the ignition coil. the connector back, push the tab to lock it down, then taking the socket wrench, I'll tighten down good and snug to the engine. Last but not least, the fourth spark plug. We'll loosen the bolt to the ignition coil. Then we'll remove the connector. Then we'll finish unscrewing the bolt. We'll pull the ignition coil out and inspect the condition of the ignition coil. Then using the extra extension, we'll remove the spark plug. We will add a little bit of copper anti-seize fluid to the threads, and then just give a light coat. Important to remember to put the short extension on the back, so if it gets pulled loose in the cylinder, you'll be able to pull the socket back out with the longer extension. So we'll work the spark plug in, making sure the threads line up, and then torque it down to 14 foot-pounds. Pull it out, make sure we have everything out of the cylinder. Then we add the ignition coil back. We'll tighten it down so that the ignition coil is secured to the engine, and make sure it's snug. Then we'll reconnect the connector and push the tab down to lock it. Okay, now we're going to check all the connectors and make sure they feel snug, and then make sure all the ignition coils feel lined up with the engine. Okay, now that all the spark plugs are installed, let's add power back to the car. We'll get the negative battery terminal, the quick connector, and click it back in. Then we can add the cover back to the trunk, line up the back two tabs, push it closed, and then twist the two locking points. Okay, so now when we power on the engine, since we disconnected the battery, your console is going to light up like a Christmas tree with all kinds of error codes. Don't be worried by this. There's a way to reset it that's very easy. So you see all the codes that are coming up since we disconnected the battery, and this puts your car in normal mode instead of dynamic. So what we'll do is we'll turn the wheel all the way to the left, and then turn the steering wheel all the way to the right. And then we'll go one turn back to center. Then we turn the car off, and we'll give it just a few seconds. And then we turn the car back on. Now you won't see all the error codes. You'll see the oil warning light on mine. I've already changed the oil. I just haven't reset the reminder yet, so that's why it shows up on my car. Before we add the engine cover back, we want to run the car for a little bit just to make sure that the engine's running smoothly. On the back of the engine cover, you'll see two holes. These will line up with pegs that are on the engine to help line up the cover. You'll see one peg here and another peg right here. So to install the engine cover, we'll start with the holes in the back and line them up with the two pegs. Once you have those lined up, you set it down, and then you'll push each side down until you feel them kind of snap in. And then we do the front two bolts to tighten it down. So we'll get it just snug onto the engine, then we'll do the other bolt. And we'll snug that one down too. Now we get the little cover pieces and we line it up with the hook on the front and then push down on the tab towards the back. And you're good to go. Okay, so that's how you change the spark plugs on Alfa Romeo Giulia 2.0. It's a pretty simple procedure, it doesn't take very long, and it can save you a good bit of money. One thing I will note is that the little plastic tabs on the connectors, they are pretty fragile, so you want to be careful when unlocking those and pushing down to remove the connectors because they can break kind of easily. But other than that, it's a pretty simple, straightforward process. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and subscribe. If you have a different way that you do this procedure, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Thank you, stay safe, and God bless.